Hello, and welcome to In Focus. I'm your host, Gunnar Texera. With me today is Cal State Fullerton professor and life coach, Jack Mierop. Thank you so much for coming in today, Jack.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm so excited to get to do this, having your class last semester, and then now having the chance to interview you. So let's just get right into it.
Okay.
What brought you here? What got you to become a life coach and doing what you do?
Well, when I started teaching 23 years ago as a grad student here at Cal State Fullerton. And as the years went by, and when I put the curriculum together for my classes, I really wanted it to be beneficial and immediately usable for students. I didn't want to just teach strict theory, memorize it, take the test, and go home. Mm-hmm. Apply it to your lives, make it meaningful. And in doing that, over the years, I would say maybe 10 or 12 years of teaching, I had so many students come up to me after class, after the semester, and say, "You're so motivational, you're so inspirational, you should write a book." And I'd roll my eyes and go, "Write a book? Ooh." It's like, you should climb Mount Everest. And it wasn't really in my focus. But the more I heard that, the more I thought, well, I'm really helping people. And I didn't expect it to have that big of an impact. But because it did, I thought, well, why don't I take it a little bit further? Mm. And I started doing presentations in Com Week here at Cal State. Mm-hmm. And I found that audiences were interested, students came to the presentations, and then it was like, all right, well, let's get a website going and start doing motivational speaking. And then people were coming to me one-on-one for personal counseling, for couples counseling, troubles in their relationships at their young age and trying to figure life out. And one thing led to another, and now I'm multitasking and multifaceted in the things that I do in my private business.
And you're great at it. I actually going to your Com Week last year was what got me to take your class last semester.
And I remember meeting you after the presentation. Yeah.
I know. It was really inspirational and very helpful. And your counseling you gave me last semester during your class was also very applicable. I was able to use it still today.
Glad it helped.
And then did you end up writing a book then?
Yes. When I first started thinking about writing the book, I thought, I'm a hunt and peck sort of typer. And I thought, I think like 300 times faster than I type. And I just thought, how in the world am I going to write a book? And then I had a brainstorm, just start recording all of my lectures. So I bought a little digital recorder, and I recorded all of my lectures for a year, and then went back and did some editing and sent it off to a transcriber who did all the typing for me. And then my task was just to edit it and to write little stories in the beginning of the chapters and to organize it and that sort of thing. So in 2013, I published the book. It's entitled Becoming, and it's to help people understand how they've been programmed, how they think, why they believe the things that they do, and how to change that to be more positive and to be more, to create more peace within themselves, and so that they believe in themselves and they love themselves. And then the big part about it is choice. Because everything in life is a choice. And the more you understand how your life works, the more choices become available to you. Mm-hmm. And then you can choose your own happiness. And really, that's the crux of the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with believing, that's also what your theme of Com Week is this week, right?
Yes, right. And that's sort of runs along the same lines of believing in yourself and because our society has a tendency to focus on the negative and presents images on social media, regular media, that this is the way you should look, this is the body type you should have, this is the figure you should have, this is how buff you should be, and many of us can't live up to that. And no. And so that leads to people's low self-esteem because they look in the mirror and they go, oh, I can never become that social media shoves down our throats. And it's about shifting that belief in yourself that you've been programmed over the years to start focusing on the positive and focus on the things that you're really good at, and because everybody's not good at everything. And so why look at something in yourself that somebody else is good at and you're not good at, and then be down on yourself because you're not good at it? You have things that you're great at. And I have things that I'm great at, and I'm not great at everything. And that's okay. And you need to get to the point where you start believing that about yourself. And that's what this presentation is all about next week at Com Week.
I'm very looking forward to it.
Me
you
too.
Helped a lot with my self-esteem back last year.
Excellent.
Coming into your office hours, talk about these things. It's kind of exactly, you were saying that even before. I wondered, did you even know back then that that's what you wanted to speak about at Com Week when you were helping me?
Well, I've had this running theme because I have a couple other books sort of in the back of my mind and in the works, as it were. And in thinking about the titles, I wanted them to be related because, I think in the long term it's going to be a box set and, that sort of thing. And so the titles run, the first one that's already published, Becoming. The second is Behaving, and it's about communication skills and how to listen and how to get your needs met. And the third one is Belonging, and it's all about relationships and the dynamics of relationships. And then the fourth one is Believing, which is about becoming as successful and as happy as you possibly can. And so those are in the works in the long run. And we've been using those titles for the theme of Com Week. Last year we did Belonging, and that was all about in relationships and belonging to a group, whether it be here on campus to feel like you're a member of this campus, or whether it's in a interpersonal relationship.
Be the dog.
Be the dog.
That one really, that's when you got the tears out of me. You struck me that one. I was like,
and well, let me explain to people, because you were there and you heard the story, and now you're saying be the dog, and people are going, what the hell are you talking about? Dogs kind of forgive you for everything. I mean, there's an interesting post from a child and the question was, what is love? And the child said, love is when you leave your dog home alone all day long, and he's really, really happy to see you when you come home. And it just melted my heart. It was just like, oh my God. And I heard a motivational speaker talk about it, and he talked about how when his wife came home from errands, running errands or whatever, he was busy at his computer and he would just look up and say hello, but the dog would go crazy. And every time she left the house and came back, he would just look up and say hello, but the dog would go crazy. And then she would pet the dog and she would give the dog a treat. And he started thinking to himself, and he said, maybe if I treated my wife the way the dog treats her, she might treat me the way she treats the dog. And that just totally blew me away. And so that was sort of the end story of my presentation. And it's like, be the dog. That's the way you're going to have a great relationship, is be excited to see that person come home every day. And don't take it for granted.
And it's so fun. I always think about that. And I realize my roommates, I even greet them. I always come out of my room and say hello. And they always say like, oh, hi, and kind of like see their faces light up. And then when the opposite doesn't happen, I kind of just think, like, I'll go to their room even, and they get excited that I come home. Even though I was like, I'll just say like, oh, hi, like I'm home. And they're like, hi. And it's just like it's interesting to see the things you taught me, how I see them in my everyday life.
Yeah. And they're not complicated things. They're just things that you haven't thought of or nobody pointed out to you, and they're not difficult to do. It's just, greet people and be excited that they're in the room. I know, me and my fellow classmates, we always just say hi, and we never say good. We always say great or how are you? And then then you said your website, you have other resources. What do those include? What is that like? Ooh, man. The website started about 10 years ago, and I've been building content over the years. There are tons of videos. I mean, there's 3 different video pages. One of them is just all trailers for all the different events. And then another page is just me personally, my features. And then there's a page with all of my events where the full programs with all of my speakers. Like at this Com Week that's coming up, I have 3 speakers plus myself that are presenting, and so all of those videos are up. And over the years, I've found people that wrote things in my classes, wrote papers or analyses and that sort of thing. And I found them to be interesting writers that had some really interesting things to say. And so I invited them to have a page on my website and blog. And they do. And it's a wide range. I mean, I've got a guy that I consider to be a modern day philosopher that writes for me on a regular basis. Sometimes sporadically, but he's written for me over the years, and I bet he has over 100, maybe 150 posts, and you know, people that are trying to find themselves and writing about their experiences. And a couple of those people I found that posted things on Facebook, and I would read them, and then I would get a hold of them and say, could I grab this and throw it on my bloggers page on my website? And eventually I just said, why don't I just give you your own page and write for me? So I have 5 bloggers that blog for me. I mean, it's an extensive website. It's probably got over 350 pages, which is, I don't expect people to go through all of it, but if you're having a tough time, just go look through some of the blog posts, look at a video, look at the titles, and see if something jumps out and hits you. I have a former student from about 15 years ago, and we're still friends. And she suffers from OCD. And she wrote a really long piece about how to deal with OCD. And it's entitled Monsters in My Mind. And I read it, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I asked her if I could stick it on the site, and she said, sure. And then she found me some really interesting artwork to put with it as well, and so I stuck that up there. So I'm the administrator of the website, and I kind of know my way around a little bit. I mean, there's certain things that stump me, but for the most part, I can go in and make changes and add things as I need to do that, and I do that quite regularly. So it's not a website that's just up and sitting there. It gets updated, and you know,
it's great.
A lot of content there.
Now, so these other speakers, who do you have with you this year? How do you find these people? How do you know they're what you want to be in with the speeches you do?
This year, all of the speakers are former students. And sometimes I've had colleagues. You know, I've been doing Comm Weeks for 10, 12 years. And sometimes I've had colleagues, and sometimes I've had outside people, and sometimes I've had referrals, and I interview them, and then I give them a spot. But the 3 speakers that are speaking this year, Connor Davison took my class at Fullerton College maybe 6, 7 years ago. And then he took a second class with me. And we became friends. And he stayed in touch with me, and he constantly talked about wanting to become a college professor in HCOM, which is what I teach in. And so he's in my office, and we're comparing notes and that sort of thing. And one year, he came to one of the Comm Week events, and I was excited to see him, and I shook his hand, and I said, thanks for coming. And he looked at me, and he said, I want to speak next year. And I was like, all right, let's start talking about it. And we did. We talked about what his theme was going to be, and he came in and he spoke, and that was all she wrote. It was like, all right, you're on for next year. All right, you're on for the following year. So he spoke for the last 2 years, and he's speaking again this year. And last year he told a story called The Lonely College Student, and he talked about, you know, what it's like to be rejected and not have a lot of friends and not be accepted in a university such as this with 40,000 students. And he's reprising that role in this Comm Week. So he's extending it, and it's going to be, from what I hear from him, it's going to be a bit of a prequel and then a bit of a sequel. So he's going to go back in time, and then he's going to go into the future as well. And his presentation is entitled A Fragile Heart. Really looking forward to that. I mean,
I don't think I'm ready for this, Jack.
It's deep. It's deep stuff.
I don't think I cried more in a presentation that I did during yours, because just all the speakers just hit me so hard. We had like Rebecca, and then I'm blanking on the other guy you had speak's name, and Davey, yes,
yeah.
And then you said Adam, right? No. Who, the lonely college student? What is?
Oh, it's Connor Davison.
Connor.
Yeah.
That one, I was just like, once he made the Undie Run reference, I was just like, was gone. I was
Yeah.
like, yep.
Yeah.
And then Rebecca is speaking again this year, right?
Rebecca is speaking again this year. She took my class 2 years ago, my interpersonal or my introduction to human communication class. And in that class, they give speeches, and she blew me away with the first speech. I was like, wow, this young lady's a good speaker. And then her second speech, well, the first speech that she gave, no, it was the second speech. I'm sorry. The second speech, it was entitled something along take off the mask or something about a mask, because we're all wearing masks because we want to be accepted, so we're behaving the way we think people want us to behave rather than be ourselves. And after she gave that speech, I was like, wow, she just blew me away. And I said to her at that moment, I said, you need to be a motivational speaker. And she said, I've been thinking about that all semester. I want to be a motivational speaker, and I just haven't come and talked to you about it yet. And I said, well, I see it. I mean, it's there. So I said, will you come and speak for me in Com Week next year, which was last year. And she did a wonderful job. And it, you know, in the back of my mind, over the years doing these Com Week things, I've always wanted to have a team. A group of people that could go out and do a high school thing where we're each doing 15 minutes, and so they're not just hearing one person, they're hearing different voices and different ideas. And to have a young group of people that are almost fresh out of high school or within a couple of years out of high school, so relatable to high school students. And so it's now like Becca's on the team, and she is for this semester.
Sweet.
And she's going to do something. I had a flyer with me earlier, believing in the good or something like that, you know. And so I'm really looking forward to that presentation from her. And then you were in my argumentation class last semester, and Becca was in that class, and we had a young lady in that class, Rachel Griffin, and she was immediately impressive, but she also is, I think, the president of the sales club, or I'm getting it
Sales
wrong.
leadership.
Sales leadership, okay. Yeah, she's president of the sales leadership club on campus, and they had a couple of events, and she asked if she could do a quick little, you know, advertisement for it in the beginning of class, and I said, sure. And just in those 3 minutes, she blew me away. And I even looked over at Becca, and I kind of go, she needs to be on the team. And then we approached her, and she said she'd love to. And so this is going to be her first time speaking. So this is exciting.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
I always know those speeches. I got in contact with her trying to get involved with sales leadership and doing stuff between classes. She was like, talked for like a minute each time, and you felt just so moved, and she's going to do great things.
Yeah, she's going to be wonderful.
So there, she's talking about, Rebecca's talking about the believing the good. Then what are you talking about believing in?
The title of my presentation is Upside Down.
Okay.
And it's because I think most of our thinking and programming has been upside down, because we hear what we're not good at and instead of what we're good at. And we're only shown the top 1% of the successful and beautiful people in the world, and then we're expected to rise to that level, and many of us don't have what it takes to rise to that level. And so we just need to change our thinking from negativity to positivity, to start looking in the mirror and noticing everything that's good about yourself rather than everything that's bad about yourself. You know, you've got too much weight, you have a zit on your face, you're this, you're that, we focus way too much on the negative than we do on the positive, and that, I think, makes our world be upside down, and we need to flip it back up. And I'm going to talk about how to do that. And
having the choice to look at the positive.
Yes, absolutely.
Then what are ways that you see just even daily, how you say, like, the ways that you see people change that? How do you, like, what were ways that you've seen with students that just made that choice to look right side up then?
You know, it's been in students, it's been on social media. There have been strangers that I don't even know personally, or that they were never a student, that follow me on my social media, my Instagram and my Facebook, I had this one guy get a hold of me and said, how do you defeat negative thinking? I mean, I think negatively all the time. Please tell me how I can defeat negative thinking. And I said, anytime you think something negative, combat it with 3 positives. And I don't care how simple those positives are. I woke up today. You got another day to live. I can breathe. There are people that have asthma, they can't breathe. There are people that, you can walk. And one of the interesting quotations that I like is, and I forget who it's from, and it goes something along the lines of, I used to feel bad for myself because my shoes were worn out until I saw someone with no legs. I mean, turn that, just look at your life and realize how grateful you can be for getting another day to live, to be able to walk, to be able to breathe, to be able to eat a hamburger, to be whatever it is, to enjoy the parts of life. And we take those things for granted. Mm-hmm. And we don't really focus on those.
I remember you telling me that all the time. Just look at that positive. Don't focus on what you haven't done yet or what you haven't done. Look at what you accomplished, what you did.
Right.
And I always remember that because I always tell myself every morning, like my little words of affirmation. And whenever I go to bed, I always say, no matter how the day went, I got dressed today. I always tell myself, I read my little words of affirmation. Yeah. And I notice the difference in days when I don't do those things. If I just throw on whatever, or if I don't read my words, I notice that difference. I'm just like, but when I do, it feels better.
Yeah, and that's another one of the tricks is start your day with an affirmation that today's going to be a wonderful day. Today is going to provide challenges, but I'm going to rise to those challenges, and that's what life is about. Another thing that you can do is, it's the simplest thing ever, and a lot of people don't believe it, but there's studies that back it up, is just look in the mirror and smile at yourself for 30 seconds. Just, I don't care if you're dressed or not dressed, just look in the mirror and give yourself 30 seconds and put a smile on your face and smile at yourself. And you become happier because you send a message to your brain that you're happy. The smile, the muscles in your face send a message to your brain that you're happy, and you kind of fake your brain out. And it kind of goes along with fake it till you make it. Believe in yourself until the dreams come true.
It's really true.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so then what are ways for society to do this? What's ways that we can, with our strangers, with people we love, what's ways for us to help them, even if we're not life coaches or we're not motivational speakers? How do we start this change to a more positive environment in life?
Find the positive in them, be supportive, and congratulate them and compliment them, and constant support and positive reinforcement. When they do something right, praise that, instead of nitpicking on all the little things that they could have done a little bit differently. I mean, I know people that you could do something wonderful and they find all the tiny little things that are wrong with it. And that is degrading. That lowers your self-esteem and makes you not believe in yourself. Mm-hmm. And so find the positive in what they're doing, whether it doesn't matter. I mean, I'll start a conversation with strangers in the elevator because I like a tie that somebody's wearing, or because I like a shirt, or because I like a hairdo, or shoes, or nails, or really, pick something. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't necessarily always have to do it with your family or your, but the people that you're closest to. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. You're excited when your roommates come home. I mean, that's part of it. Mm-hmm. Because somebody's excited about me, because most of the world isn't excited about you. They walk past you and ignore you. And you see that over and over and over again, and you start to believe that you're not worth anything and that nobody cares. And then if you have people that are just in their own head at home and busy in their own lives on the computer or doing whatever they're doing, on their phone mostly, that's a terrible addiction. And then you walk in the room and they barely recognize you, that just continues to proliferate the message that, you're not all that important. Mm-hmm. And that's the main thing that people long for. That's the longing that I see in people's faces. Please recognize me. Please understand me. Please, and this is the key. Please value me.
I was just thinking validation in my head.
Show me the value and validate who I am and what I'm doing. That's how you start at home.
Mm-hmm. And it's finding validation in others and hearing it, because then you really might believe in yourself even too.
Yeah. And it's also the words that you use to the way you think, the way you describe the world, the way you describe yourself. If they're negative words, flip them, turn them into 3 positive words. Because even the words that you think and that you say to yourself has a huge impact on how you believe about yourself. And those things can be very simple, but if you're programmed because you grew up in a family that, you know, didn't believe in you and told you were good for nothing. I had a student that came into my office. She was a freshman, first-time freshman, first semester. Came into my office, and in tears, she was saying, "My family thinks I'm an idiot. And my parents tell me that. And they say, don't bother going to college because all you're going to be is a maid. You're going to be a house cleaner for the rest of your life." I mean, how do you break out of that negativity and start to think positively? And I couldn't believe that she was in a university, first of all. How do you get into a university with that kind of programming and treatment as a youngster? And she said she had a very supportive boyfriend, and she tries to spend as little time as possible with her family because they're just degrading her life. And too many of us have been programmed in that way. And we need to flip it. That's the upside down world. You're living in this upside down world where you're not going to be as happy, and you're not going to be as successful, and you're not going to be as effective in your relationships and at your job and at school if that's your belief in yourself.
And so I see that so constantly, especially at my current internship, and just the reinforcement. And like, even when I like joke with like my boss, if I'm doing something like, oh, like gotta be careful, don't get fired or whatever, he always corrects me. He's like, I'm not gonna fire you, Gunnar. Or like you don't have to call me boss, whatever. Like, it's just Brian. He like never, like, he almost doesn't like me calling him boss, and I kind of forget because he wants that relationship. He wants us. Yes, he's our superior, but he's our colleague, and he's our support. He's our fan. He shows a validation. Shows that we're not just some stoop who he brought in for credit.
And I have some people that are uncomfortable calling me Jack, and they call me Professor, and I try to correct him and say, you don't have to call me Professor. I mean, I know it's respectful and I appreciate that, but I want us to be on more of an equal level. We're just people sharing this planet, and you know, I have a little more years on the planet, but that doesn't mean I'm smarter than you or that your experiences are any less than my experiences, because your experiences could teach me a myriad of things. And when you approach people that way, then you approach them as equals, and they feel valued and they feel validated because what they have to say is important.
Yeah, and I realize I almost don't even just say your name. I just say hi or like, how's it going? Because it's so weird to say Jack at times instead of Mr. Mierop or Professor Jack. I think it was towards the end of the semester when I started just saying Jack more casually.
Right. And that's an interesting thing to consider as well in leadership and in friendships and that sort of thing. When you use somebody's name, you personalize it, and they feel more important than just hi and just, you know, Professor Jack. Now you're talking to me, which makes a real big difference.
I know, and I've noticed that even with meeting new people, if I remember their name, they always say, like, I remember reading a study where it's like, if you say someone's name, they're immediately more interested, and they find you more interesting because you use their name in it, and they like recognize that like talent to take the seconds to learn their name. Yeah. I'm the worst with names, so when I remember your name, that's impressive.
I'm not good with names either, and so in my classes, I have students give me a picture, and I put it on a note card, and then I use it as a flashcard at home to learn names, and I learn within a couple of weeks. I learn everybody's name in the classroom, and then address them by name when they come into the room, which makes the room bonded, and they feel good about themselves. I mean, I'm trying to practice what I'm preaching here.
I remember that class. I remember the class before that when you went to study the note cards, and then after, just everyone you said their name, and I was just like, oh, that's their name? Like, oh, you know all of us now? Like, whoa. Yeah. And just like seeing you go through them, I was very impressed with that.
Thanks.
So you are a professor and a life coach. What else do you do? What else do you...
You know, 7 or 8 years ago, one of my students, an older student, she was in her late 30s, was planning on marrying her boyfriend, and I walked into class one day, and she said, "You need to become ordained." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because I want you to marry us." And I said, "Okay, send me the link." And she did. She sent me a link, and I went online, and I became an ordained minister in like 5 minutes.
Of course.
And then, got all of the paraphernalia that goes along with it. And now I've done a couple of weddings. I did one in my backyard because I do events.
Oh,
I rent my home out and my backyard out for small events. And so I did a wedding in my backyard. And then a couple of weeks ago, I did one in La Habra.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I can officiate weddings. I can counsel people that are getting ready to get married. I see clients in my home office, life coaching. I do grief counseling. I do couples counseling. I do individual counseling, motivational things of that nature. And then I do motivational speaking at small businesses to help them understand how to approach their customers and what their customers need, that kind of thing. So,
how does becoming ordained then help with the relationship guidance and doing couples therapy? How's that like seeing weddings happen and the couples that come through to you? How does that help then?
Well, it's in most of the stuff that I teach in interpersonal communication, it's about relationships and it's about communicating effectively, and it's about the dynamics of relationships. And so it kind of goes hand in hand with marriages and officiating weddings and that sort of thing, and talking to couples about why they want to be married and what their idea of a relationship is and that sort of thing. And so it really goes hand in hand.
And then the other types of counseling, the grief counseling, how have you learned to become these kind of counselors? What did you have to do to?
I read a lot. And being a college professor, I mean, we focus on studies and we focus on new publications and that sort of thing. And so as these things come across my desk, I give them a glance, and if it seems like it's something that would apply to me, I dive into it and try to understand it as best I can. And just trying to help others.
Just read more.
Yeah, read more. Our society needs to do that.
Definitely.
More, yeah.
I think that about concludes things. So when is your event during Palm Week next week?
Okay, it's on Wednesday night. It starts at 8:30. The doors open at 8 o'clock, so you can come in and get a seat. We might still be milling about and setting up. And it is in the pub, which is downstairs in the CSU, right next to the bowling alleys, if you know where that is. And it's sort of an intimate place to have a presentation like that. And get there early, because last year we had standing room only. We don't sell tickets. It's a free event for Palm Week, and we had a packed house, and it was glorious. It was just wonderful. It's so nice to speak to a packed house.
Oh yeah, it was crazy how full it was. And I remember getting there early, and like the second I saw the event on the Palm Week last year, I was like, I'm gonna go to this. I want to see this, and I'm so glad I went there early. And I found friends that I actually went there too, and just sat with them. I was like, oh cool, I see, and it was packed.
And you didn't know Becca at that point, did you?
I knew we had a mutual friend, and afterwards we met each other, and that's how we became close. And then we took class together, and that's how we then met you, and we became close with you.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I was so excited to get to this with you.
Me too.
And apply everything you've learned into this interview.
Yeah.
Well, that is all we have time for today. I just want to give one last thank you to Jack here and encourage all of you to come to his Calm Week and check out his website so we can help you jack up your life. For In Focus, I'm Gunnar Texera.